To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to FreshBaked a happy place where each week we combine imagination with our experience and discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I am Ron Berner, and that is, of course, Mr. Fresh Baked himself, the indelible David Erickson.
What's up, Fresh Baked?
And this is the Fresh Baked Presents Podcast, episode 11. Thanks for joining us, where today we discuss Zombie Captain America. You may have heard. We reach into the mailbag to answer your questions and, of course, our 5 things Disneyland. So, David, how are you this fine day?
I'm doing great, Ron. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am also doing great.
We're laughing because we're very busy today. We're like freaking out. Everything's perfect. Everything's fine.
Yeah. That is true. We are putting on a mask. Life is busy, and that's a good thing. I never complain about being busy. So, that being said, I didn't see tons and tons of news this week in Disney because I am starting a new job, so I've been doing that crazy stuff, while you, David, have been busy with lots of new things I have been happening in Disneyland, including Zombie Captain America. There was a sighting, and I know you did a video on it, and all kinds of fun stuff to talk about. So I guess give us the backstory on where it came from, and where the idea stems from, how you feel about it, and where it goes from here, if it can go anywhere.
Yeah, well, where it came from was pretty much out of nowhere, in the sense that nobody saw this coming. I was just going about my business, and then somebody said, "Hey, Dave, Zombie Cap's going to show up in Avengers Campus today."
I was wondering.
Nobody saw this coming. Nobody. But in terms of, the conversation really, I should say, before I even get into that, it's not so much about Zombie Cap specifically per se. It's more about the general idea of a scarier version of a Halloween party at the Disneyland Resort. You and I touched on this.
We did.
Yeah, and we actually, because there was that survey, which we can get into that, and that was the conversation that we had then about the survey and what people wanted or didn't want. So that could be sort of the genesis of why we all of a sudden out of nowhere have Zombie Cap in Disneyland. Now, by the way, Zombie Cap, when I say that, I mean there is a Captain America who is a zombie at Avengers Campus as part of Oogie Boogie Bash, and that you didn't hear me incorrectly. There is literally a zombie version of Captain America running around Avengers Campus, taking pictures with people.
And I might say it's pretty good.
Well, that was good. Yeah, you know what? Whatever you want to say about if it belongs in Disneyland or not, I have to say they crushed it. They really, or this scare actor, right. The makeup, just everything about it was really good. It was just he wasn't loose. He was in that little meet and greet area, just underneath the Avengers. What do they call that? The big Avenger building that I used to call.
By the logo.
They have a little corner down there where Iron Man and others tend to meet from time to time, and it's just a little nook that they have, and he's behind a rope, and he just kind of. It's really neat. It's really, really neat. The actor did great. His little zombie poses were great. He goes into this whole. He's doing his zombie thing, and then he'll stop, and he'll take a picture, and then he'll go back into his thing. It's great.
It's so funny that you say that, because that's one of the very first thing I noticed, because it kind of reminded me of that notion of a character in the distance where they're not standing next to you and posing, because they did that at Avengers Campus when it first opened and was still heavy within the COVID protocols. So I noticed that he did that, so it was at a distance and it was cool. The other thing is, I found out about this, believe it or not, I got a notification from Attractions Magazine. You may or may not know this, but they cited you in there actually.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, so Attractions Magazine, the email that I got, I was like, oh, cool. We were just talking about this, or you texted me this, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
So then when I went back to look it up, it was the video that was in there. There was a couple that were in there, some Instagram, but they said the good one, thanks to FreshBaked or whatever. And I was like, yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah, we scooped everybody on the video on that one.
Yeah, it's nice that you got tipped off on that. That's really, really cool. Yeah, I think... So you were there and you saw and you were.
Oh, I wasn't there. I had an agent on the scene, as it were.
Oh, okay.
Street team.
I was gonna say how we were gonna get into how you pulled off the reservation on the fly. That's really, really cool. So thoughts that it's there. Oh, actually, I heard you may have already known this because I have not seen the show. The What's If this is
What If, yeah.
Or okay, what if?
Okay, so there again, if you're looking for Genesis, there's two Genesis for this. The survey, we're kind of inferring that is the Genesis, but really, there was a What If episode about a month ago, and the What If show is basically a hypothesis. They put Marvel characters in a hypothetical situation, and they say what if. And in this case, the hypothetical was fairly general. What if there was a zombie apocalypse in the Marvel universe, and half the Avengers turned into zombies, and the other half of the Avengers had to defeat. Now, I don't know why they decided to do this, other than to say that the zombie Avengers already existed before that, even in the comics.
Right.
There's a whole storyline and it's been going back for a long time. Yep. So the What If series probably picked up on that. But again, why they felt compelled to make a zombie What If series, I don't know. So the What If episode aired on Disney Plus. It's a show that's on Disney Plus. It aired about a month ago, and then since then, in between that and this event, was the survey that Disney sent out about. I guess we'll get into that. The survey. There's a couple of questions. I didn't get it myself. I never do.
I know.
Right. And I only heard this third hand, but it's verified. The survey asked, "Would you be interested in something a little bit more scary, adult Halloween, mazes, scarier characters?" And my guess is that they got enough positive response on that they decided, and this is clearly a pilot. This is clearly a play test, as it were. I don't know what the term is, but it's clearly a test to see how people would, proof of concept, exactly, how people would react to that situation in the real world on the ground. Now, I didn't get to see. I only see the reactions from the guests who were opted in and took their pictures, but they seemed to enjoy it. They were really getting into it. I can say that.
Oh, for sure. Let me ask you this: was this specifically for Oogie Boogie Bash?
Yes, this is only for Oogie Boogie.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a few things come to mind. Obviously, the survey played a role because they're testing the waters, certainly for proof of concept. I also think that there's something to be said for it being in story or in character, because the comics. I mean, zombies work. You almost want to see a zombie. It's canon. You want to see a zombie.
Sort of. I mean, because the What If in the comics.
Well, I'm saying if it came from the comics, then, and like, first of all, zombies, you want to see a zombie in every other walk of life. Like, whatever the world is, zombies just works. Like, what would that look like in zombie kind of thing? Yeah. So the Captain America thing is because of the What If series, and I hadn't seen the episode, so it's interesting that you say that there was many Marvel characters that all had zombie. What would be really cool, the first thing that jumped in my mind for Disney, actually, was the real American Captain American, like human, not zombie, having to fight zombie Captain America because, of course, the film. So I think it's really, really interesting. I definitely think that it's also works because it's human. It's people, like in Avengers Campus, especially when there's time travel. So they threw that plot device in. They can do whatever the heck they want. Sure.
No, they really can do whatever they want. I mean,
yeah.
They've been messing with that for a long time. Yeah, for sure. Basically, it's there's the apocalypse. It takes place at that very opening scene. That's where the story's set, basically, or where the What If story starts. The same place that Infinity War starts, where the Hulk crashes through Doctor Strange's house, the Sanctum, and he says Thanos is coming, and they go outside, and then but instead of finding Thanos's two generals or whatever they are, the guy that can move things and the big dude, I don't even know their names, but instead of seeing them, they find that the whole city has been overrun by zombies, and then if you get bit, and there you go, it's about who's bit, who's not. Captain America, obviously, he doesn't start out. He gets bit like halfway through or something like that, and then he becomes a zombie. There's a lot of other. They could have pulled a lot of other Avengers characters. Like I said, half of the team basically, which makes sense because it's like a 50-50, snap thing.
Yeah, I mean, Black Widow.
So half of them are zombies, and the other half are trying to stop them.
So Black Widow's in the parks. Loki. That's the other thing. So they haven't. This is not exactly out of left field from the standpoint that I guess where I'm going with this is the marketing tie-in and the cross promotion. Are they really tying Disney Plus together with the parks? Because Loki episode, the WandaVision.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. They are tying in a lot of Disney Plus, and it's funny. I was approaching this from a different angle, but that just opened my eyes because Disney is definitely full court press. They want you to get Disney Plus. Right, and that's basically where they've been hanging their revenue for the past year and a half is on Disney Plus. So
I think those characters are really what my mind going that direction was way back when with Galaxy's Edge and the Mandalorian absolutely blowing up and feeling like somehow how do they not put the Mondo or any of those people in Galaxy
because they got hung up. Okay, I don't want to get into that.
Right? No, I'm just saying that's what made me. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That just made me think cross promotion.
Yeah, Avengers Campus is correcting that mistake, and we talked about that in a previous episode also. Avengers Campus is trying to correct a lot of the mistakes that they made. Missing the Mandalorian in Galaxy's Edge, shame on you. Shame on you.
Well, I mean, it's hard to imagine Grogu not showing up, right? Like, eventually, at some point. But, anyway, that's all I mean by that was it wasn't unprecedented for them to bring somebody in that wasn't seen other than a Disney Plus show.
Yeah. Now the angle that I was taking with this, and maybe I don't know, because it felt like with the survey that Disney was trying to see if they could capture some of that Halloween Horror Nights and Not Scary Farm type business, because some people pick a side, right? A lot of people do both.
Right.
My wife does both. I've been to Not Scary Farm this year, and she's going to Halloween Horror Nights, I think, later. But I think that they're I don't know if they're trying to or if they're saying if there's interest in that, because Halloween Horror Nights and Knott's Berry Farm are huge events in the Halloween season, especially in terms of marketing and just creating buzz and energy. More so, I mean, Oogie Boogie, and I think I talked about this before. Oogie Boogie does have its own sort of excitement, but it doesn't even reach anywhere near the excitement that people have. People talk about Halloween Horror Nights 6 months in advance. They're already getting excited about it when they hear what the mazes are going to be, etc.
Yep. Well, that's because they know where they can get that thing, and Disney doesn't offer that thing. Hence, to your point of why they're doing it. I think you're right 100% with the survey. Those surveys, that sort of data collection, the quantitative, qualitative things that are taking place, those are a lot of time, money, and effort goes into that with teams of people doing the research on this to come up with just a questionnaire, let alone what the data, how to interpret the data and what they want to do with it moving forward. I think it was absolutely there targeted, and I think that you're right that their minds are set and thinking of how to compete or how to have something else to offer. The reason the zombie thing works, I think, is because it's a ticketed event. Like, the parks remain agnostic. The parks remain Disney. The parks remain who they are. But if you want to go to a scary version of Disney, let's go to Oogie Boogie Bash now because it's pretty. I don't want to say generic because they do a good job with what it is, but it's one note versus adding this whole element.
No, and DCA is fair game. DCA is wide open. DCA can do a lot of things that you can't do at Disneyland.
Great point.
They couldn't do even just basic Oogie Boogie at Disneyland.
They should really. That's such a great point. You're right about that. They should really push the envelope in that regard. Then,
you've already. I mean, let's go. Now, I asked you about this. We talked about this, and I remember you saying you don't necessarily need a scary, or that it doesn't really work at DCA, or I can't remember what your thoughts were.
I think what I did say that I wanted to see the Halloween. I want to see Mickey in a zombie, or not a zombie, mummy. You know, I want to see them. I want to see the characters doing Halloween. So if it's people like Captain America or whatever, like doing Halloween and getting up for it, like dressed as zombies, what I originally said. But I feel like, and I could be wrong, check the tape, I feel like I was thinking as a general atmosphere within the park rather than Oogie Boogie Bash. The fact that it's a ticketed event, I definitely feel like I do subscribe to the scariest and the darkness, because it's ticketed. You know what you're getting. I know kids can still go to it, but it might not be for who it's for, and I don't know.
Well, there's two things that I would say, because this is a divisive topic for a lot of fans, because just look at the comments. Look at the comments in the Zombie Cat video. It's 50-50. Well, no, I take that back. I think it's probably a little bit stronger towards the approval side than it is the negative. But there was more than a little people saying, "Nah, this ain't for me. This ain't for Disneyland. They don't want any part of it." But
I'm not looking at the comment.
Yeah, I would say there are 2 points to those who, may be against this. One, it's zombies, and today, these days, zombies are sort of the unofficial, the generally accepted safe zone. If you're going to do horror, you do zombies, right? So every video game that's being produced these days, because they don't want to kill humans, right? You have to kill something in a video game, right? So you can't kill humans. So what do? You turn them into zombies, and then now it's safe. Now it's good. It's not as violent as regular, like a Call of Duty, let's say. Even though they did do Call of Duty Zombies, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a safer thing to do. It's so much so that kids, I think, understand that. Even young kids understand when they see a zombie on a TV program or in a video game or something, that they understand this is not real, this is fantasy, this is make-believe.
Yeah.
So it is, if they're going to do it, I like the idea of doing zombies because it does have that sort of built-in safety factor. And second, to your point about which characters you do this to, you absolutely do it to characters like the Avengers because they don't have the historical, the built-in. You can't do it to Mickey. You can't make Mickey a zombie because we know Mickey for 100 years. Right. We've known Mickey, and he's a nice guy, and he can't be a zombie. But you know what? You go ahead and make Captain America a zombie. That's fine. Yeah. So I think as long as they keep it into within those restrictions, that kind of thing, I think it's fine. I think it's good. I think it provides a lot of great energy and a lot of interest. People want to see this. They're like, when we're talking about Galaxy's Edge and Avengers Campus, there needs to be a thing where, like, did you see that? Were you able to see that thing? Did you see Spider-Man? Did you see what? Well, they don't have that at Galaxy's Edge. They don't have an equivalent, but there needs to be one. And this is what that is. Did you see Zombie Cat? It's great marketing.
No, it totally is. It absolutely is. It's water cooler talk because, like, the Spider-Man thing that Avengers Campus had is everybody has to see. You got to see it once. You got to.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. I like the idea of the zombies. I think, where does it go from here? Because how limited are they? Like, is it just more?
I don't know. They might be limited to zombies, maybe. I don't know.
Well, how limited are they with just Avengers characters? Just
they could do a
zombify
whole
all
maze.
of them?
They could do a maze, a zombie Avengers maze, and that's probably the next step. This is just to see if I think how the actor plays the character, which he nailed, and to see if there's interest and if there's buzz that's created by this small little thing, and it was buzzworthy. So I think where he goes from here is you build a maze somewhere with I don't know where. There's no mazy type place. Maybe the Hyperion maybe.
Or the Redwood Creek.
Well, they've already got Villains Grove there. And now you're going to transport Marvel characters over there?
Well, that's a whole different... No, that's true. You'd keep it... You're right. Keep it... Hyperion would work over... They have the whole...
Stage 17.
Backstage.
Yeah, they've got Stage 17. They've also got the old Flynn's Arcade. I don't know what they call it now, but where Flynn's Arcade was. I don't even remember that during Electronica. It's where you have Captain Marvel's ship now, her jet, in that area back there. You could probably there's a stage back there as well, so you could probably do it in one of those two areas.
Yeah, we always talk about the back lot. They have nothing but space back there to figure out whatever the heck they want. in a roundabout way.
Is a horror story in and of itself. That's you just open up the Hollywood Backlog and say, "Here's your Halloween."
And Avengers Campus has leaked all the way over there. I mean, Spider-Man's over there. Captain Marvel. I mean, it goes all the way back there. And especially for a special ticketed event, people are less they want fun. They're less concerned about any of that kind of stuff. I had a question regarding, do you think, so where do they go from here in terms of, I guess they could do all the other Marvel characters, but what do you think that so you mentioned, obviously Disney's doing this to test the waters. They want to get a temperature on doing something such as this. I feel like the buzz is actually going to be really positive, even though there's going to be people that don't like it. I guess, what do you think is your overall reception of something like this, taking everybody?
Yeah, I think at minimum the majority approve. I don't know if it's I would have to do a ratio in the comments, but basically that's where I'm looking. But I would say it felt to me like 70-30, maybe positive.
Yeah, I gotta think it's. I think my instinct. It's funny because we talked about it last week, the changing of the tides, right? The tides are changing, and we're so against change. We just are so against change in so many ways, but in so many other ways we want new, we want flavor. So we say we're against change, but we want new things. So something like this is obviously a change. Disney has not had a zombie or anything this frightening before. But the fact that they're doing it, like, my initial instinct is not like, I can't believe they're doing it. My initial instinct is like, yes, this is cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. What took you so long? This is great. I approve, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, just to try, like expand your wings a little bit. I don't know, anything that I haven't asked or that we haven't touched on as it relates to it, where it could go, what it means, if anything. Yeah, I guess I feel like we are in that direction. I feel like Disney, I think they're going to do it. I really do. I think they're going to go for it next year. So do I.
The thing is that Disney fans, if they're anything, they're fickle. They're not going to get 100% positive reaction to this. But I think they are going to do it. I think they should do it. And if you're worried about it, then just don't go to Avengers Campus. Don't go in that maze.
It's a ticketed event. That's what separates it. That's the real big distinction between offending or people, is you don't have to go to that event.
No. Well, it's not even that event. You can go to the event and just not go to Avengers Campus.
That's true.
Right? I mean, it's not like this is replacing anything, as far as I know. I mean, at least in this iteration, this was just added on. It was extra. It was more than what you were. I went to Oogie Boogie twice. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I had a great time at Oogie Boogie without Captain America. I would have an even better time if he was there. But if I don't like the idea of zombies, then I just skip it.
So that just makes you think. It's a great point. And having the kids, the element of the kids, we always talk about the four quadrants, or at least I always talk about the four quadrants. And I always think of it in terms of, the idea is to make as many people as happy as possible without directly alienating anybody. So how cool would that to promote a zombie campus? You know what I mean? That's a very specific zombie campus within the velvet ropes, if you will, whatever the guidelines are, that the parameters that are keeping that space very specific. Then you're going to have the other areas for all these different types of entertainment for kids and for whoever. That's just very mellow compared to what you might see at Zombie Campus. Yeah, very cool. I think there's room for it, frankly. I think there's room for it. And here's the other thing. I think there's room to try it to see if there's room for it. Do it and fail and then move on. But I just think they should try it. I really do. I think you're right. Next year, I could see them definitely, maybe not going full throttle, although if you're going to do it, go full throttle.
Well, maybe they'll just go regular throttle this year and full throttle next year, or the year after.
Yeah. So this year, that brings me to my next question. Do you think that there are more surprises in store? Because we're still 12 days away from
Oogie
Halloween.
Boogie?
Well, from Halloween. Yeah, from more. We've seen Captain America zombie. Are we going to see anybody else this year?
Doubtful. I think that this was just, like I said, it was just a small test to see how things go. I don't think we're going to see anything extra beyond this, not this year.
Well, that is good because I don't have any more Oogie Boogie tickets. All right. Well, I think we're gonna put a button in that then,
Okay.
David. I guess we'll talk. We'll know because we'll bring it up if something were to happen again
We'll
this
be
year.
here to tell you. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So moving right along, this week in Disney history, it was a light week. Actually, if you, I guess, want to say a light week, it feels like there's been so many bonkers things going on. But October 20th, 1934, David, I had not heard of this magazine or this comic. The first issue of Le Journal de Mickey is published in France. It's a French weekly comics magazine dedicated to Mickey, which is pronounced Mickey. There, I looked it up. Mickey. With paper shortages and other limited resources during World War II, the final issue was published in 1944. But in 1952, the magazine was given new life, and new issues are still in circulation today. This comic magazine is full of editorials and local and international topics, letters from readers, and of course filled with comics, imported comics from the United States and other countries, along with the original French comics of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. This magazine, or this comic magazine, has become a part of French tradition today, as it is now the most popular French weekly magazine for children between 8 and 13 years old, with an average circulation of 185,000 and a subscription base of 99,500. This is a fun fact. On top of all of that, it is also credited with being the birth of the modern comic, which seems crazy because that's 1934 feels late, but I don't know. That's what I read.
I don't know my comic history well enough to be able to say or bet that.
Yeah,
that
I don't either. But then, but also when you throw the word "modern" in front of something, you could like
True.
it's the birth of the modern comic.
Yeah, the other stuff.
Do you know anything about this comic or
No. No idea.
Where are you? Are you a comic book reader or collector?
I mean. Yeah, from time to time I get into it and then I stop because it's hard to keep up. There's so much. There's so much. I don't even know where to start. And that kind of, I suppose that's an issue with anybody who's trying to get into comics. Like, where's the jump in point? I don't know where the jump in point is because it's an ongoing thing. Like, do I read Captain America from 50 years ago if I want to start reading Captain America? Like, I don't even know how. But
the jump in point is zombie.
But yeah, there's that. But when I did get into comics, I enjoy being there and reading them. So yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, every time I read them, I do enjoy them. But I could tell you where my jumping off point was, or jumping in point was, Galaxy's Edge when they had that little 4-issue series. Yep, I ordered them. There's a comic book store on the corner, and when I go in there, there's a lot of cool. There's endless comics of every subject you can think of. It's actually a really, really cool world. But you're right, it's daunting. Where do you start? Like
it's intimidating. It really
is. It is. 1968, Life magazine includes an article celebrating Mickey Mouse's 40th birthday. The title of the magazine, Happy 40th Mickey. It told of Mickey's successes in his first 4 decades, including character roles in 140 movies. In 40 years, he was in over 140 movies, personal appearances on at least 5,000 different products, 400 funny paper strips, or comics as they were called then, mass circulation of 48 million, and in books selling a total of 300 million copies. He's also been immortalized at Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. So that just got me to thinking, no big deal he was on the cover of Mickey at his 40th birthday, but all those numbers made me think that was 53 years ago. So he was a massive star 53 years ago, and obviously today he's as big a star as he ever was. That got me to thinking, is Mickey Mouse the biggest star, or at least the most globally recognized character figure on the planet?
Well, it's funny because I do feel like when you speak in terms of like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Back in the day, he was probably a bigger star relative to other stars. back in the day. I don't think he's as big a star today relative to other stars. But I will say to that last question, the Mickey silhouette is probably up there in the top 5 most recognizable, images. McDonald's arches, or you just kind of throw a bunch of stuff out there. Air Jordan, the swoop, yeah, the swoop.
Not the swoop, the dunk.
Well, that too, yeah. But I'm just talking about you're right. But I feel like his silhouette that is probably one of the most recognizable images in the world. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's interesting. Like when you start thinking of like what country doesn't know Mickey Mouse? He's a part of pop culture. Maybe not pop culture, maybe not the right word because it's been going for so long. But in terms of like jokes and comments and like, Mickey Mouse is just. It's just interesting. It was a very interesting conversation. It's the thought that came to me, like, wow, I don't know how you get to be more well known globally than Mickey. Like, where would you have to be that people, as a country, they're like, no idea. So
I don't know.
And what made me think of that is because I always say that Darth Vader is the best known villain globally, and then this made me think, wow, Mickey was that huge 53 years ago. He was a massive star, and to your point, just like Charlie Chaplin was a massive star, there's just more stars now, so it's hard to it automatically dilutes.
It's a more diluted landscape today than it was back then.
Many more options for sure. A lot of things opened this week in Disney history. Dumbo, October 23rd, 1941. Brother Bear, October 24th, 2003. The Nightmare Before Christmas opens. And The Nightmare Before Christmas, these are a couple little fun facts, was based on a poem written by Tim Burton when he was an animator for Disney. Burton originally pitched the poem to Disney as a stop-motion feature in 1983, but it didn't work out at that time. When it was finally greenlit in 1989, because the film was stop-motion, it took animators 3 years to complete with about 120 people working on it, including 12 to 17 animators. That's a lot. We've talked ad nauseum about this film and how you're not a huge fan of stop motion. How many times, though, do you suppose you have seen Dumbo? How many times have you seen Brother Bear? How many times have you seen Nightmare Before Christmas?
Oh, God. I'm going to surprise some people with this one, I think.
That's what I think is interesting.
Dumbo, 3 times, maybe. Nightmare, half dozen. If that even. What was the other one? Brother Bear?
Brother Bear.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen Brother Bear. I've seen it once. I watched it with Champ a few years ago. I've seen it once. I didn't hate it at all. It's fine. It's good. I need to see it again, actually, because I like the story. I like.
Well, they have that one really cool song that the Disneyland band plays a lot too. The family song.
But Brother Bear I've only seen one time. Dumbo I have seen. I'm sure I've seen it dozens of times as a kid, but I can only remember in like my adult life maybe a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 times. Nightmare Before Christmas I love it, so I've seen it a couple dozen times at least. Yeah. Also opening this week, a couple one fun story, and then I'll finish up with a great celebration. So, 1951. This is a fun one, David. The Goofy film Fathers Are People opens, and don't you and I know that. Goofy, I haven't seen this, but I'm going to look it up because
I know I haven't either.
It sounds really cool, and hopefully it's on Disney+. But Goofy experiences the trials and tribulations of fatherhood, with Junior always coming out ahead in each situation. Fathers Are People is notable because Goofy Jr. and Mrs. Goofy appear for the first time.
I'm sorry, who? Mrs. Goofy?
Yeah, so let me get to that. That's what we're going to talk about, my friend. Mrs. Goof, or Mrs. Geef, is the wife of Goofy. Oh man, you don't even know where I'm going with this, by the way. And the mother of Max, or Goofy Jr., as he was called at that time. Yeah. Goofy did have a wife in early animations, but her face was never shown in the original cartoons. But her red hair was shown and her voice was heard. She appears to be slender, rather tall, with light fair skin, similar to Goofy's mug. Not too much is known about her except for the fact that she was nearly as goofy as her husband. Then she suddenly disappeared without a trace. And believe it or not, this is a true story. Believe it or not, there are actual theories out there about how she may have disappeared. And I saw some of them that's pretty interesting. Maximilian, or Max Goof, is the son of Goofy. He first appeared here as Goofy Jr. He's actually literally born in this cartoon. Jr. remained regular in Goofy shorts of that era. His modern iteration, redesigned and renamed Max Goof, first appeared in 1992 animated TV series Goof Troop. Since then, Max has appeared in several features, typically alongside Goofy, of course. He's actually at DCA in the World of Color Season of Light. Max appeared in the Goofy segment in which they overdo it on the Christmas lights and spark a house fire. So I was going to ask you, I didn't have a question, so I was going to say any thoughtful or colorful anecdotes on the Goofy family, but you didn't know about Mrs. Goofy.
Well, I knew that. Look, there has to be a Mrs. Goofy because there's a Max.
There's a right.
So, but it's sort of it's an interesting thing how Disney kind of handles these situations. This is why none of your characters have kids, which is why I'm surprised that there is a Disney character with a kid, because then you have to start having that conversation. Where's like, how did that happen?
And what'd you do with Mom?
Right. Okay, so there's Max. Geef? Really?
Geef? Mrs. Geef. Well, this is in 1951, so they went through a few...
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know the backstory of what happened to Geef or Mrs. Goofy or whatever.
There's a rule. I can tell you the closest thing out there to... It's a misinformation where there's rumors going around that it was stated on Goof Troop at one time that she I forget what it was. She left. Like she just took off or whatever and left. But it's not true. So whatever that is not true. It's like literally Disney just abandoned her. They just ignored her.
Yeah.
So it created this fun thing where people are out there talking about, well, she's a very bad driver. So they're tying in all these other shorts and Max, of course, was the or not Max. Who's the big cow after them? It is Max,
Clarabelle?
Right? No, Brute. Not the cow. Who's the big villain in the Goofy story?
Oh my God! Now I'm drawing a blank.
I know. I wanted to say Pete. It popped in my head. I had to stop thinking for a second, and then it'll pop in my head. Yeah. So that's really, really interesting and fun stuff. But anything to add on that?
You're not going to find Goofy whatever on Disney Plus, because obviously they don't want you to know about it. They don't want to be reminded of that. This is intent. It is intentful that we don't know who. They're trying to ignore that, which is that's why I'm surprised they even did it to begin with, because like I said, here we are having this conversation.
Well, she's on many shorts though throughout those years, so
but not on Disney. I'm saying you won't find her on Disney Plus.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, I guess it's intent, but it's almost innocuous. It's like why? Yeah,
they want to pretend because they have to pretend like
the stork brought them.
That these animated characters aren't doing anything that is.
What are you talking about? Mickey Mouse gets his butt in trouble every single. The whole premise is based on he's a mischievous little brat.
Yeah, but this.
I know. I hear you. I totally hear you. It's funny. It's funny that because I stumbled once again, man, doing this week in Disney history, I stumble across things. I stumble across it, and it's so fascinating, and it becomes like this little tiny anecdote that I just share a little bit, where there's so much more meat on the bone that we don't even get into. Yeah. But it's super, super fun, and again, like next year at this time, am I going to have to come up with new things, or are we going to add to these things? Or just do a whole new segment entirely? So, anyway, this is what I wanted to close this week in Disney history on, because those that are aware of Disney history are also aware that they're celebrating it currently right now with our sister in Florida. And on the final day of the 3-day gala grand opening ceremony at Walt Disney World, a dedication is read by Roy Disney. And when I went through and read this and started writing this and putting it together by myself, I can't lie, it brought a tiny little like tear to my eye. I didn't cry.
A little softy.
Yeah, it was touching. It was touching because I didn't know this. So the world's largest marching band at this gala with 1,076 instruments plays 76 trombones, a 1,500 voice choir, 1,500 people in the choir. And they sang "When You Wish Upon a Star." Thousands and thousands of balloons are released. I did see a photo of it, and it was spectacular. Roy firmly believed in Walt's vision of Disney World, and as a financial mastermind, he knew that this endeavor was not only a creative milestone, but also a very sound business decision. The entire Florida project meant a great deal to him, and to honor his dear brother, Roy changed the name of the resort from the announced Disney World to Walt Disney World. Roy stated, "Everybody knows the Ford car, but not everybody knows it was Henry Ford who started it all. It's going to be Walt Disney World, so people will always know that this was Walt's dream." On this Sunday morning, as you guys know, Walt had died 4 years earlier. On this sunny Monday in October, with Mickey Mouse by his side, Roy dedicated the park and Walt Disney World as a whole to his little brother. Roy proudly read his dedication to the audience, stating, "Walt Disney World is a tribute to the philosophy and life of Walter Elias Disney, and to the talents, the dedication, and the loyalty of the entire Disney organization that made Walt Disney's dream come true. May Walt Disney World bring joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who come to this happy place, a magic kingdom where the young at heart of all ages can laugh and play and learn together." I read that quietly doing homework, and I was like, whoa, I knew, I guess some sort of anecdote of that, I guess I maybe knew, but it was a little bit more profound when you think of, and the reason it's profound is like it's a brother that lost his brother, and like fulfilling his dream, because Walt Disney World was his dream. Because remember, Roy wanted to retire, and he was going to retire. The only reason he hadn't retired is because he wanted to make Walt's dream come true. So he went through with all this. So all of that brotherly love stuff was super cool. And of course, congratulations to Walt Disney World and everybody in Florida celebrating 50 years. Okay, mailbag, David.
Let's do it.
Let's do mailbag. Chase Stewart asks us, what are your Disneyland traditions? Always go to the left, to the right, first ride, first snack, place to sit and eat, get away from the crowd, any of it. What are your traditions?
Well, I mean, I have a couple, I guess. I don't. Okay, to answer that first question, I generally go left. I exit and enter both on the left, meaning I exit the opposite side. Anyway, but I don't really stick to traditions per se, because I go so often that, I mean, traditions are more for the people who are kind of going there like maybe, infrequently. Every few months or a couple times a year or something like that. I go so often that how can you do a tradition every single weekend? But having said that, I do have my habits, things that I prefer. As a habit, I generally go to the left. As a habit, I try to always go down Main Street in a vehicle if I can help it. I feel like that's just the best way for me to get into the morning is by taking a vehicle. I prefer rope drop over closing. I think that rope drop gives you the best energy, gives you the best sort of, I don't know, it feels like that's what Walt wanted, was to do rope drop. Plus you can get a lot more done in the morning than you can in the evening. Well, mostly. Although I have to say, the evenings that I've been spending at Disneyland lately have been pretty great. Now that I think about it, they've been pretty great. So I'm not sure about that. But yeah, traditions, most of mine are Main Street. Most of mine are Main Street related. Vehicles, the hub, the train, that kind of thing. What about you?
Mine's real easy. Rope drop, space, whatever Disneyland brings.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure your tradition is to do Tomorrowland first. I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah, and you made a good point. Like you said, which is a better way to phrase it, is I wouldn't call these things traditions. I would call them habits. Like we just tend to go. I do tend to always go left. The other thing is, so I drink so much coffee in the morning that I can't wait to use the restroom there by the fire truck. You know, that one up the steps. Yeah. Like there's a little. Sometimes I'd go there after because I remember I had to drive half an hour or whatever, and then the park and all that. But Space has a bathroom too, which is so it's like I just go straight to Space, and then as soon as you get done, it's like okay, here we go, we're off to the races, and then wherever Disneyland takes us. Yeah. So habits, I do go left always. I do tend to. As a matter of fact, here's a pro tip: always go left in the lines when they split and divide, because human nature is to go right, and that's why when you go to a show or a trade show, the best premier things are always to the right, because human nature is to go right. So if your booth is to the left, you're in trouble. But I do always try, at least in recent years, I guess I could say pre the last 2 years, after Indiana Jones and Jungle Cruise, get a Dole Whip, things like that, Salt and Straw.
Really?
Those are the things. Yeah, I mean, well, not solo, but when I'm being a daddy, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot of tradition stuff, and it's really difficult. Like we're there. We're fortunate enough to be there so often that it's kind of like I enjoy talking to other people about what their traditions are, because it's almost like you accidentally take it for granted and don't think like that because it's a path of least resistance.
Yeah. Well, let's. Yeah. What are your traditions? You tell me.
Yeah.
FreshBaked.
Let us know. Thank you for the question. And number 2, Angelica asks us, David, what type of show would you like to see at the Fantasyland Theater if it or when it comes back? How about the Hyperion?
Interesting, because we're yesterday, based on when this airs, yesterday I just did a bit about the Fantasyland Theater. It's under refurb. There's a scrim covering the entrance, the marquee, the archway. That's all under scrim. And I asked that question: what could they possibly be doing that would require that? I don't know. But what kind of show would I want? Just what they were doing, really. Magical Map was fine. I don't have a prerequisite for what kind of show. I just want a show. Give me a show. Give me a live show that runs, every hour and a half or something like that. And don't turn it into new. I don't want it to be square footage for another attraction or anything like that. We need to preserve live entertainment in the parks as much as possible. So I'm not picky when it comes to that, because a show is a show in the sense. Some are better than others, but I was fine with Magical Map. I would be fine with that now. Hyperion Theater, I'm less in love with that location than I am with Fantasyland Theater, because it's enclosed, and I kind of prefer my experience to be. I still want to feel like I'm in Disneyland. When I go to Fantasyland Theater, I do still feel like I'm in Disneyland. When I go to Hyperion, I feel like I'm going to a movie, and it's not the same. I feel detached now from the park. It detaches me. So I wouldn't be upset if they leveled Hyperion Theater and did something else, although it does take back, detracts from the live entertainment that I just was promoting.
Right.
I'll take a laugh. I'll take a laugh.
Yeah.
Put it back.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I do agree with you in terms of, I think Fantasyland Theater, it's a nice retreat. You're outside. It's great entertainment. Or it's a different entertainment. So I totally agree that I like that where it is, and I don't want an attraction to take its place. What they put in there, I'm also not picky with entertainment. I would say that I would like original, like more, or at least something that's more of a. I know they're always gonna have IPs in there, but more like recent, or even like an ideal thing would tell the story of the eras of Disney, the Bambi stuff, and then just take us through the animated journey in some way, which is that's quite an ask, but something with that sentiment in mind, I think would be really cool. Yeah, just cool. Bring us current. Yeah. In some ways, parades attempt to do that in only ways that they can, without getting to be too extravagant. But something that's really original, that is going to appeal and speak to everybody, because the newer people, it's going to teach them, and for us older folks, or even much older than us, is going to like that nostalgic ride and that journey, because it's really cool to see, when you really think about animation, where it started to where it is. It's pretty remarkable. It's really
right?
Cool. Hyperion, man, I don't know. I definitely agree with your sentiment. It feels like you're out, more so than Galaxy's Edge. It feels like you're on a different planet, and when you get out of Hyperion and go in there, and I also thought Frozen. I didn't dislike the show, but it took forever. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Not because I didn't like the entertainment. Yeah, it wasn't because I didn't like the entertainment. It was just I was too like, I'm at Disneyland or I'm at DCA. I need to be active. I don't know what to put in there. Like you said, man, Aladdin. I'm always voting for Beauty and the Beast somewhere. Mary Poppins, get Bert doing something. I don't care.
Oh, that'd be cool. Mary Poppins would be cool.
Mary Poppins would be cool,
yeah.
Especially now that they brought Mary Poppins in the new generation, and I loved that one too. So Mary Poppins returns. Thank you for the question. Daniel Diaz asks, Indiana Jones Adventure breaks down daily. Do you think it needs a major refurbishment, or is it just something that can't be fixed?
Well, Daniel, you ain't lying. It does break down daily. They should call it Indiana Jones Breaks Down Daily instead of Indiana Jones Adventure. Yeah, I mean, sure, it could use an extensive refurb, but I don't think it would fix it, not permanently. What ails Indiana Jones Adventure isn't its age or its lack of upkeep. It's a very complicated ride system. The mechanics of that vehicle is complicated, and it makes it difficult to keep it. It's subject to failure because of its complexity. In the same way that Rise of Resistance breaks down almost every day. It's a complicated ride system, and it's subject to failure. So you could do all the refurbing you want, and it does need it because they were planning to do one, but it wouldn't solve the problem. It would just make it better today than it was yesterday.
Right. Improving it is like the key, because as time goes on, technology changes and evolves, and there's better ways to do things. So you would like to think that would like mitigate it some. I would be curious to know what things like Peter Pan, things like Indiana Jones, things like Rise. I feel like Rise is more electronic. I wonder what it is specifically. If you're going to talk to a cast member, like there's that one thing that constantly breaks. Like, is it a common specific thing that constantly continues to happen, or is it a number of different things? I would be curious. I don't know.
To that point, I don't know if this is the case now, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I recall the one thing that was a problem was, in case of Rise, was Wi-Fi, because it's not, there's no track. Right. So how are these vehicles operating? They're operating through Wi-Fi.
That's hilarious.
So
it's hilarious only because, like, let's put a Wi-Fi like ride that requires this in a place that doesn't get it.
Right. I don't know how accurate that is. That's just something I heard way back in my day with the Knothole Gang and Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
Yeah.
That one just seems much more sensitive, because if somebody's like hat hits the ground.
That's the thing too. As soon as something hits the ground, the whole ride stops.
Right. That's what I was just going to say. Yep.
Oh yeah.
So
the same. Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, I had heard the same. Maybe I had heard it with you, but I remember that in my head, thinking like, especially in those early days where every little tiny thing set it off, so they were like over cautious, which is not bad either. Okay, let's do one more, David. Pet peeves while in the parks. Pet peeves. And he cites an example that may or may not be a pet peeve, is when people are loudly reciting the stretching room dialogue during the show. It's certainly...
Yeah, I don't enjoy that. I don't know if I put that in the pet peeve category or not, but I get it. I get why, I don't like to hear people... You know what? Do it quietly to yourself if you're going to do it. Because I do it myself. I try to... Right. You can't help it. But I don't do it loudly. The one thing that I always turn back on, or always come back to, pet peeves, is, I'm just going to name the one, is when people stop in the middle of a highly trafficked area. My analogy is, think of yourself as a vehicle on the 405 or the 5 freeway, and imagine a vehicle just stopping. We're all moving together as a unit. We're all going the same pace, more or less. So if anybody's like going super slow, if anybody's stopping, if anybody's going 5 wide, like 5 wide, you got a group of 5 and you're all going, next shoulder to shoulder. I guess I don't know if I'm being like whatever. I hate running into the back of people because you just suddenly stop and you turn around. And I mean, I've been guilty of it myself, so I know it. Sometimes you can't help it, but just got to be aware. If you need to stop, pull over. Just like if you were on a freeway, pull over to the side and then do your thing. Don't stop in the middle.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And we've all, every single one of us has experienced, probably been on both sides of that. I put I put not giving wheelchair strollers the right of way as just a general courtesy. And I don't mean bend over backwards, but I mean, when I see them coming, and I have a son, the other thing, once again, is when you're trying to like set an example, and I tell him not to cut in front of like wheelchair strollers or anybody walking. So that sort of cutting people off or stopping, somebody's cutting me off mid-step. Those kind of things are problematic, and I'm like I had to like abruptly like do something to not run into you, and it wasn't my fault. Like those things are things. But the other thing I put is rudeness in general. Just rudeness to cast members when it's not their fault. We've all seen that when people are upset about mobile order and those kind of things. So we're all also in line, and other people are complaining. But that's just a rudeness in general. And it's no fun. Like.
Well, be considerate. Yeah, that's the basics of any pet peeve is that people are being inconsiderate.
Yeah, exactly.
One other thing, by the way, your stroller thing. Your pet peeve is people not giving right away to strollers, whereas a common pet peeve that you hear is people getting hit in the back by a stroller. They don't like that, which is the opposite of what you're saying.
I've never had. I don't recall that happening. I know it does happen. I get stepped on my heels, mostly by an 11-year-old boy that when I turn around and look at him, the fear of God is in his eyes because my shoes are white and shiny, and I don't want him to. Just kidding. My Disneyland shoes are the oldest, grossest pair of shoes I have because they're still comfortable. Exactly. Here's another fun one that I Googled it because I didn't know. I'm like, what are common pet peeves? That's an interesting question. The first two I thought of on my own. This is a good point. Do not put your kids on your shoulder during Fantasmic or World of Color. That's a good point or ever. I actually put or anything or anytime really. I get it. It's so hard because you're the parent and you want your child to see. But guess what you're doing to people behind us? Because me and Champ were in the back the very, very first time we saw World of Color, and I hadn't experienced it. And he wanted to see, but I was so upset that people were doing that in front of me. I wouldn't do it to him. So I wouldn't lift him up. But I was upset. I was upset because I wasn't able to share with him. So we had to try to figure something else out. And that was years ago, but still that point remains. Don't do it.
Yeah. Nothing says I don't care about you more than putting your kid's shoulder or your kid on your shoulders. That screams you don't matter to me.
Exactly. Right, it does. And it didn't even come to me. I had to look that one up.
Yeah.
Okay, David. 5 things Disneyland. This week, 5 things are the top 5 animatronics in the parks. This comes from Andrea.
All right.
Dopiarella. I can't say your name.
Dopiarella, sure, I know her. She's on the live streams often.
Great.
I have a feeling there's going to be some crossover on this list, but I'm going to start number 5 for me is C-3PO at Star Tours, if only because I love Star Wars, and I love the fact that there's a real-life C-3PO in Star Tours. I mean, he's an easy animatronic to do because he's literally a robot. So, it's not hard to make it, but he feels real to me. It feels like C-3PO is right there, and I love that.
Excellent choice. My number 5, C-3PO. And guess what?
Crossover.
Yeah, what's funny that it was the same number. But what's actually really interesting about that is like you said, is because there's a lot of Star Wars characters that I had considered and thought of, but the C-3PO thing is it just feels so authentic and so real. It's like really, it actually is cool to hear and to see actual C-3PO to everything that you mentioned. So I agree.
Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so number 4, I'm gonna stick with Star Wars, and I'm gonna go with Hondo at Millennium Falcon. Now I'm picking him as much because he represents like the modern animatronic as opposed to some of the more classic ones, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But Hondo, they got it right. I don't know how else to say it, but I really enjoy that pre-show element. I do feel like that I'm in Hondo's shop, and I do feel like he's talking to me. I like them up, elevated up there, talking to Chewie, looking at the thing, talking to us. His moves are very graceful and realistic. They're not choppy like a robot. It's a great modern example of what they can do with it. There's better animatronics than him, but most of those are at Walt Disney World. As far as what we have here at Disneyland, I think he's probably, in terms of the tech aspect of it, he's probably the most advanced animatronic we have.
He should be. He's the newest.
Yeah.
Good choice. I think he's great also. My number 4 is Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, because he's like the famous animatronic. The one that was, I know his head, when you talk to the cast members there, his head alone is $5 million.
Jeez, really?
Just the head. Like the cast members, every time I'm there, every time I go to see the show, and you're standing there waiting, it's just a common thing that they like to bring up. Or at least it happened to me anyway. They want to ask you as a trivia question. So now I know. I was like, yeah, $5 million. Think about that. $5 million. And but Lincoln's great, and the show is great in terms of the historical thing. Like it could be done better now, I suppose. And I haven't seen Walt Disney World's version of Hall of Presidents, but it just warrants. He's worthy of being mentioned in the top 5.
Absolutely is. Yes, definitely. Okay, so number 3, I'm going to go with the Yeti, the modern Yeti and the Matterhorn. There's been a lot of iterations of Harold, but I feel like this current one, the one that he was installed maybe 6-7 years ago, I think. I love it. I love the modern Harold, the modern Yeti. He's the scariest version of them all. The other one before that was a little bit Scooby-Doo, but I like the way he it's a subtle thing, but he kind of comes out at you a little bit.
Yeah.
Very fierce.
And paws at
sound. You. Yeah. It's a moment. It's a moment that you get to, you look forward to as if you're on the Tomorrowland side, and you make that left around, the crash. What is now the crashed helicopter, the Frank Wells tribute thing. I guess if you want to call it that, they got a little Frank Wells thing down there. But you come around that corner and you see the Yeti yelling at you. I love it. It's a reason to love the Matterhorn.
I totally agree that the upgrade or the refurb or whatever you want to call it when they installed them, it made it much better. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. Maybe my number 3. I suspect you probably don't have is Indiana Jones. I love Indy. I love Indiana Jones just because it's somebody I know. I love Han. He's not Han Solo. I understand that, but he's Han Solo. I love it. I just think it's cool because big Indy fan. I like the ride, and I like the fact that he's in there. And fun fact, he's all rubber, so they don't ever have to do anything to him.
No, it's that's the thing. If you were able to get a good close-up look at Indy, it might terrify you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did it for fun.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 2 is going to be is Lincoln. I ranked him a little higher than you because I like you said, he started it all, and he's still great. What they've been able to do with Lincoln, and they do still update him. He still gets he still gets new upgrades over the years. But yeah, he's the first. He's original, and I respect that a lot. I respect the fact that he's still, as far as I know, the only frickin' animatronic that can stand up from a sitting position. They're not doing that anywhere else, are they?
No, that's a good point.
So, and that's that's a moment when I go to see the Lincoln show. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm like, okay, is he gonna do? When's he?
Yeah.
All right, there he goes. He's doing it. Yes, he did it. He stood up, and it's like a big deal for me. I like that. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's his cadence, the way he speaks is always you can't help.
I wish I could speak like that.
It's so great. I know. We have to ask Daniel Day-Lewis how to do it because that boy could do whatever he wants on camera. My number 2 is definitely not on your list, and it's going to be controversial as all get out. But I love me some Jack Skellington. So Jack Skellington at the bottom of the Omnimover when you're going around right before you go into the main showroom.
Oh yeah.
So he's there and he's talking to us, and I can't even remember what he says, even though I've seen him dozens of times. But
Happy
it's
Halloween,
fun,
everybody!
Yeah. It's so much fun, and you see him moving like in the flesh, quote unquote, Jack Skellington. So it's a cool, fun moment. And there's a lot of worthy animatronics actually that are not going to make the list, but I wanted to mention Jack.
Well done. And I have a feeling my number one, I'm going to beat you to it. The Auctioneer, Pirates of the Caribbean Auctioneer. He's not the first. He's maybe not even the best, although it was said that for the longest time that he was considered to be the most sophisticated animatronic anywhere. But I choose him mostly because he's the freaking auctioneer. I mean, he is Pirates of the Caribbean. He's the captain. He's the boss. He's whatever you want to call it. His character in the show, not just the fact that he's an animatronic, but his character in the entire Pirates of the Caribbean. I feel like he's the boss of all the other pirates that are on there, including what's his name over there in the Barbossa. Barbossa reports to the auctioneer. I'm gonna put that's in my head canon.
Right. So I should have put Red. Because when I was thinking of pirates, when I was going through my head trying to think of all of these things, all I could think of was Captain Jack, and then I was like, yeah, but no. So I actually went number one. The Auctioneer is great and worthy, and I didn't think of him, frankly. To be perfectly honest. I didn't even think of Red. Because in my mind, when I went through all of these, it's like, okay, Pirates of the Caribbean, and I'm like, okay, that's Captain Jack, and then I moved on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't stop to actually process. But you're right, that's a good call. My number one, you called it, Harold. I think Harold's cool. I think Harold is really, really great. The Yeti in the Matterhorn, as you mentioned, the upgrade was nice. Was welcomed. It really added to the attraction. Frankly, it kind of went from like this real old looking thing that didn't really work to
very
like
modern,
total upgrade. Yeah, it's really upgraded nicely, and I think it's fun. I think it's super fun, and imagine the Matterhorn. It would still be fun, but imagine a Matterhorn without those two or three times running into Harold. Twice, I guess. Right? It needs it. Yeah, you need them there. But that's it. That's 5 things Disney, David.
All right on.
So anything you want to touch on before we close this puppy?
Yeah, I want to see some zombies. Give me some zombies and Oogie Boogie. I'm ready for it. I'm down.
I want to see some zombies too, and I also want them to like sneak one more in this year. Just one more zombie. Just sneak them in as we get into Halloween week. Some way, somehow. Yeah, I'm going to say Black Widow.
Yeah?
Black Widow. She's there. Although, I don't know. I don't know. She's there. She's female. She fits the world. She fits the conversation.
I can't remember if she was zombie in What If. I can't remember if she was or not.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. That's probably a good place to start. Yeah. I mean, Loki's there. But I say it'd be fun to see. We've seen him. I'd love to see her. So that's a wrap, David, on this week's show.
Yep.
Very, very scary zombified conversation. Lots of fun things that we got into, and as always, thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to listen to us and chime in with questions, in with top 5 subjects, and rate and review us and comment and say nice things. So join us here next week, and until then,
FreshBaked.
FreshBaked. You do a good job. You do FreshBaked. I think I will go on a limb and say that you do the FreshBaked better than anybody I know.
I would hope so. I didn't invent it. I didn't invent the FreshBaked call out, but I do it okay. Yeah.
Well, you do it okay. Mine is off. I got to work on that. FreshBaked. Like I try to get deeper. I don't want to sound dainty that I am.
No, you need to get from down here. You got to start it from down there.
From my stomach. It's like acting classes all over again. Speak from your stomach. I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah. FreshBaked. God dang it. I'm gonna FreshBaked.
No.
It's like a puppy that got stepped on.
All right.
Cheers.
Show.
Cheers.